Brett McCann, my guest from Edmonton this morning. And Mr. McCann, thank you for speaking with me before you and your family head to court. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Heather.
How are you doing? Let me ask, just start right there. How are you doing? What's going through your mind this morning?
Well, the last few weeks definitely have been, I guess, a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. Just building, I mean, this whole thing for the last 6 years, been a lot of waiting for the next thing to happen. But we feel good this morning. My daughter flew in from Australia, and my son is here from Vancouver, and we're hearing that a lot of our relatives from out of town are going to be at the courthouse. So we really appreciate, all that support. So
that's good.
We feel good about that.
So preparing as a family, together as a family, to face what is to come. I don't need to tell you this because you've been front and center for these many years, but this has been a circumstantial case, and there are no guarantees. What sense do you have? What do you expect to hear from that judge today?
Most of the time, I must be honest, most of the time I'm quite optimistic that he'll say the right verdict.
Which is, for you?
After hearing all of the evidence, I'm convinced, and my family's convinced that he had something to do with my parents' disappearance.
And what if he comes back with a not guilty verdict? Have you contemplated that scenario?
I've definitely contemplated that, and let me tell you, that would be a major disappointment, Heather. Just a major disappointment. I mean, the police have been terrific here. The Crown prosecutors have been terrific, and it'll be very disappointing if the court system lets us down.
I want to ask about what we're going to see. I was mentioning in the introduction to you, whatever the decision is, Canadians across the country will see it because it will be telecast, it will be on camera, it will be live streamed. And you and your family were in favor of a public broadcast. Why is that, Mr. McCann?
Well, not this specific one, but I mean, I'm in favor of openness and transparency, and I think it's very important, especially on a case like this where it's, as you said, a lot of circumstantial evidence and very complex, that the judge explain his rationale for the verdict that he has. The court system is open. One could go down to the court every day and watch it, and one could go to the website where the judge files his decision. But I don't think a lot of people will do that, or hardly any people will do that. And I think it's important that the Canadian people be educated about the thinking behind these decisions, and particularly in this case.
Canadians have been following this case and your family's story since the heartbreaking events of 2010. And we were there, our cameras were there. You'll remember the day. We'll show it again not too long ago when you took the step of taking down that billboard that people had seen people had seen in the area, looking for tips to help you locate your parents. It was a sad, symbolic day for you, I remember you told us. And their bodies have not been found still to this point. Do you, Mr. McCann, on this day, do you still hold out hope that you will find their bodies, that you will find out truly what happened to your parents?
We find out. I'm hopeful that someday, somehow, somebody will find the remains of my parents. There's a tremendous amount of bush up there, but there are hunters and fishers going through that. In fact, those are the kind of people we focused on with our posters initially. So I think over time, this may take a long time, but I think that they'll be found, unless hopefully, and I don't think this is likely, but possibly Vader might have a sense of remorse and give some information that way. But overall, I'm hopeful this will take a while. This will be over the years, but I'm hopeful that they'll be found.
What are your feelings toward Travis Vader today?
I like to focus. I've already said how the verdict I'd like to see. I'd like to focus on today, especially on my family and that are here and that are going to be at the courthouse, and focus on the support they're giving us rather than focusing on the negative at the moment here, Heather.
So let's focus on your parents then for a moment and share some thoughts, because I know you saw them the eve before they headed out on what was to be their vacation. You were with them before they left on that road trip. What are your thoughts of them this morning?
I really miss them. We were spending we lived in the same town as them. We spent a lot of Fridays, especially together. I really miss my parents, and I know my children do, and I know my grandchildren would have. So I really miss them, and this makes it all come through. But this is a whole process, and this is just taking it one step at a time.
And I know you have a beautiful plan in place to honor them when this is over, a particular legacy to them. Can you tell us about that?
Well, the reward that some citizens here in St. Albert and the Mayor Krause at the time helped us gather a reward of $60,000 that we put in the trust of Crime Stoppers, and we had it there for 6 years. As you said, we put up signs on the highway and announcing this, and there was not one tip on that. So earlier this spring, we decided to repurpose that into public art, and the city here, St. Albert, has a terrific program, in my opinion. For situations like that, they have people that will take what we're thinking, what we remember about my parents and things, their habits and so on, and they'll send that information out to their list of artists and others, and the artists come back with concepts. Our family will be on the committee that reviews those concepts, and hopefully they're thinking by next fall that there'll be a tribute made to my parents. And I'm thinking that my dad loved nature, and he could name every tree there was and every bush, and my mom loved birds. She recognized a lot of bird songs, and she could make a loon sound. It's a very distinctive sound when you hear it on a lake in the evening. And so I'm somehow hoping that a piece of art could be developed that symbolizes or has two loons at the edge of a slough or a pond. And I want to call the piece Darling, because that's the terms of endearment that my parents always used with each other. And actually, it's great. I just started working with the city, and I'm hoping that I'm able to focus on that over the next few months.
It's a beautiful remembrance. You can think about that today. Mr. McCann, I know Canadians who've followed who can't imagine that this could have happened to their parents. So I thank you for, there's a tremendous amount of public support for you and your family, and I thank you for giving me some time before you head to that court today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather.